Good morning, everyone. We have a leaf blower in the background. I hope everybody can hear. I would like to welcome everyone to the Montana State Library Commission's December 23rd meeting. I'm Robin Scribner, the chairman of the MSL Commission, and I call this meeting to order. As your chair, I'm going to create a productive meeting place where every commission member and staff member is respected, valued, seen, and heard. And I'd like to ask our commissioners and staff to introduce themselves.
I'm Carmen Cuthbertson from Kalispell.
I'm Tammy Hall from Bozeman.
Peggy Taylor from Whitefish.
I'm Tom Burnett from Bozeman.
Brian Rossman from Bozeman.
I'm Jenny Stapp. I'm the Montana State Librarian.
Genevieve Lighthizer, Admin Specialist, Montana State Library.
All right. I remind you that Genevieve is our parliamentarian. And if we have any questions about Robert's rules, she will help us. Another reminder, if we're struggling for a phrase, or if we're struggling to phrase a motion, I as chair may allow a discussion on how the motion should be phrased. Not in all the motions, but using my discretion, I may allow a limited discussion in the phrasing of the motion. Also, we will allow public comment before our discussion so that we take these comments into consideration before our own comments, giving us a more informed decision and discussion. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Madam Chair, I would like to make a few comments regarding the Montana Library Association resolution at some point in the agenda. It shouldn't take more than about 5 minutes.
We put that at the under other business at 1:40. Is that all right, Brian? Okay, we'll put that in at 1:40 then. Okay, anyone else? Any other changes or additions? Okay, our first item on the agenda is the evaluation of Jenny Stapp, our Montana State Librarian. Jenny has chosen to have this evaluation in executive session. So I believe we'll resume approximately at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, so I'll pause the recording on Zoom and I'll mute the mics. So those on Zoom, you'll be able to see the the image of the room, but you won't hear anything. I'll put up a sign explaining that. Else Superintendent Artson is online, so she won't hear it. You have to be in the room to do it.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Okay, the first action item on the agenda is the consent agenda concerning the minutes from October 11th and October 27th of 2023. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I might move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. It has been properly moved and seconded that we accept the consent agenda as is. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we will now vote on the motion, which is to accept the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Okay, the consent agenda has been approved by a voice vote. Okay, a reminder for all the next agenda items, public comments will be limited to 3 minutes if my discretion, and it is my discretion to allow longer. As we get further down, that will change, but as of right now, we will use the 3-minute discussion time. As passed by the 2023 legislature, Senate Bill 232 and House Bill 580 legislated changes in how executive branch agencies respond to public information requests. The Office of Public Information Requests, OPIR, within the Department of Administration was created to implement these changes and assist agencies in managing public information requests. The state mandates that all agencies adopt a public information request policy. Are there any questions that need to be asked to make this more understandable? Did you have a chance to read? Are there any questions? Okay. Is there any public comment? Is there a motion to accept the public information request policy?
I'll move that we accept the public information request policy.
Is there a second?
I second that.
It has been properly moved and seconded that we accept the public information request policy. Is there any further discussion? Any further public discussion? Okay, seeing there is no further discussion, we will now vote on the motion, which is to accept the public information request policy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All- Excuse me, sorry. All opposed say no. Okay, the information policy, the information request policy has been approved by a voice vote. Okay, next are the budget amendments. We have the fiscal year 2023 general fund revisions. Are there any questions that need to be asked to make this more understandable?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
does this spring from our last discussion? Wherein I suggested that we retain unspent general fund to be reverted at the end of the biennium to the general fund.
That's correct. At the October meeting, you had suggested that there was a balance in the FY 23 general fund that we retain for reversion.
Madam Chair. And that amount was, by memory, about 125,000.
We'll ask Melissa.
Yeah.
Is this on?
Yes, it
It's
is.
still so formal. The reporting on the dashboard is a little over 200,000 left in general fund for FY 23.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm sure that that the staff, Jenny speaking for staff, would have an interest in this subject, so maybe we could ask for input.
Okay. Is there input of the public comment?
I'm happy to provide input, or Melissa, if you want to.
I'm not quite sure that it's necessary to make any motions or vote on anything because all dollars revert automatically on June 30th of the end of a biennium.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So that money is, as I understand it, it's approved for the biennium.
So the general fund is appropriated by the legislature per year in a biennium, unless it is noted to be biennial, which means it can be spent in either year. We don't have any general fund that is biennial. And so on June 30th, those dollars that were unspent were reverted automatically within Sabres, our accounting system. So those dollars aren't even available for us to spend anyway. So I'm not sure that there's a need for any action at this point.
So Madam Chair, that sounds like this is a moot point.
To vote on.
Clarify, we're talking about the 200,000 went back where in June of 2023, not 2024.
Right. That's
Okay, all right. And so it was then what? It was returned to the state. Okay, so
So we do not need to be asking for a motion to accept, or do we need to accept that we don't need to then?
I believe Commissioner Burnett's interests have been met through the
Okay.
state reversion
Okay,
process.
got it. All right. Okay, so we'll go on to the next item. Okay, and this concerns the federations. I, at the October meeting, asked to reconsider the funding request made by the Library Federation Task Force. That was to allocate $24,000 in coal severance tax funds to the Montana Library Federations. This funding remains unallocated in the fiscal year 24 budget. The recommendation was for each of the federations to receive an additional $4,000 for cooperative projects. We heard reports during our October meeting from the federation coordinators about the value of the federations and the importance they play in the successful operation of the libraries. The in-person meetings have proved to be invaluable for the librarians and their trustees. The continuing education workshops, resource sharing, and collaboration with fellow librarians make the federations a worthwhile funding recipient. Okay, are there any questions that need to be asked to make this more understandable? Okay, is there any public comment?
This is Jackie Scott from the Carnegie Library in Big Timber, and I have public comment from one of my trustees.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. Go ahead.
Okay, this is a comment to the Montana State Library Commission from Peter D. Fox, trustee from the Carnegie Public Library. The subject is my introduction to the South Central Library Federation. Dear Commissioners, I regret the business appointment today in Billings prevents me from participating in your meeting. I've asked my comments to be presented to you in my place by Carnegie Public Library Jackie Scott. I was honored and pleased in early 2023 to be nominated for appointment by the Big Timber City Council as a citizen trustee of the Carnegie Public Library. Since moving to Sweetgrass County 4 years ago from Park County, where I had been active as a citizen appointee on several city and county boards, I thought it was time to be a volunteer appointee here. Based on my professional experiences in the private and public sectors, my thought was, this should be interesting, and it would tie into my love of learning and reading. Then I began to learn of the role and requirements of becoming a trustee. This is a little more involved than I thought. I recall thinking as I received my trustee handbook from our library director, Jackie Scott. I was impressed by the foundation and detail contained in the handbook and discussion of the many responsibilities of a public library trustee. Knowing I had been appointed to a position of public trust in our community, I was determined to be an informed and active board member. I fully understood simply as a library patron and Big Timber resident that our library is an anchor of our community and county. My appreciation of the Carnegie and our community life has only grown. So I was pleased to accept the opportunity in September to attend a meeting of the South Central Federation in Laurel. This meeting expanded my understanding as a trustee of the Montana State Library System and what I consider to be an invaluable information and learning exchange among libraries within a federation, in this case, the South Central. In my 30 years as an active and reserve military officer, from my varied private sector experiences, the phrase force multiplier comes to mind. As I see it, our federation, and I believe the others in Montana, exists to reduce duplication, share resources, conserve dollars, and help provide citizen volunteers with information vital to their public trust role as library trustees. In closing, I encourage the commission to continue to look favorably upon the library federations as the critical linkage between local libraries and the Montana State Library, and as an essential resource to we citizen trustees. Thank you, Peter D. Fox.
Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome.
Thank you, and thank you, Peter. Okay. Is there any other public comment? Okay, is there a motion to increase funding to the federations?
I move we reinstate the funding of additional $4,000 to the federations.
I'll second it. I'll second it.
Okay, it has been properly moved and seconded that we that we. No, you okay. Reinstate the 4,000 per federation. Is that what you meant? Okay, $4,000 per federation. Okay, is there any further discussion?
I would like to make an amendment to this motion that we add the wording for the purpose of either funding trustee travel to in-person federation meetings or funding the fulfilling of the new whole board training requirement in the public library standards.
Second that amendment.
So either funding, to in-person federation meetings or funding the fulfillment of the whole board training requirement in the public library standards.
Whole board. Whole board.
Training.
I second the motion in the amendment.
So. Okay, is there any public comment on the discussion? Or or on the amendment, on the amendment, excuse me,
Discussion from the commission.
discussion from the commissioner?
Madam Chair, a question for the amendment maker. What do you fill out the funding of fulfillment of the whole board training requirement? Explain what you envision there.
There's in the newly minted public library standards, there's a new requirement that requires that an entire board, as a board, gets 3 hours of training every year. And my library board in Kalispell has discussed how best to do that. And we were considering maybe having Tracy Cook show up and answer questions or bring us a topic. And, you know, maybe that will cost money. I don't know what ideas other boards had to fulfill that, but it's a brand new thing. And I think this could encourage that the boards do that and make it easier for them.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
the year that I was the representative from this commission on the Federation, I was really impressed with the ability of their groups to get each other engaged. And it was very clear that sharing information was important. But to me, the lack was the training of the trustees and the involvement of the trustees. And again, they call them all different names. So we have to remember that some of them are board appointed, some are board members, some are trustees. It depends on their government structure for that particular library. But that seemed to be a real void. And I very much from the very beginning with this money was in favor of it going to involving trustees and involving them in training and being at meetings. I think there are already, as Tom had pointed out earlier, many opportunities for the librarians to get together at conventions and training, but to get the trustees there, I think is an absolute void. This would be very helpful, I think, into getting that local control issue firmed up and get the trustees involved. So I very much support the amendment, and with the amendment, I would support the motion. Without it, I wouldn't.
Is there any other comment? Okay, is there any other public comment? Okay, if not,
I just wanted to
Yes.
say, adding a new standard, which has been done, is a really good idea, that these libraries have to, as a board, the trustees have to be involved 3 hours. But I also think that it would be very helpful to make that more attainable for people. Many people who agree to serve in these do not have the money to get to training or whatever. And so they're volunteers and they're community people, and a lot of them are doing this out of real heart, and it would be a real financial burden, and I think it could be real helpful for training.
yes, I believe at a local level, it would be helpful for the trustees
Oh,
to,
yeah.
yes, it would be, even to go to the MLA conventions and different things. I think that would be very helpful. Okay, all right. So the amendment to the motion by Carmen Cuthbertson is to add for either funding of trustee travel to in-person federation meetings or funding the fulfillment of the whole board training requirement in the public library standards. Okay. Okay, so that is the amendment to the motion. All those in favor say aye.
I,
All opposed say no. Mine was an aye vote also, sorry. Okay, so the motion, okay, so now the motion will be to reinstate, yes, thank you, yeah. The motion is to reinstate the funding of the additional $4,000 per federation for either funding of trustee travel to in-person federation meetings or funding the fulfillment of the whole board training requirement in the public library standards. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye. All opposed say no. Okay, the motion to reinstate the funding of the additional $4,000 per federation for either funding of trustee travel to in-person federation meetings or funding the fulfillment of the whole board training requirement in the public library standards that has been approved by a voice vote. Thank you. Okay. Okay, our next agenda items are the final administrative rules adoption. Okay, I would like to ask commenters on Zoom to raise their hands to be counted. Okay, since we have approximately, let's see, oh golly, we have until 12:30, so we have 2 hours and 10 minutes. Okay, okay, all right, who would like to comment? Just a second. Let me get to my notes, I'm sorry. I'm using paper notes here. That's all right.
Geographic.
Okay, so the first is the proposed administrative rules revision that clarify what state funding is tied to public library standards and to amend the reference to tribal. Is that one? Oh, right. I didn't go back far enough, I'm sorry. There it is. Okay, sorry, changes to administrative rules are necessary to reflect to the Montana Geospatial Information Act, formerly the Land Information Act, adopted by the legislature with the passage of House Bill 343. Is there any public comment? Okay, this is 2 hands up. Okay, so this is 10.102.9101-10 through 10.102 .9106. It is not the Public Library Standards, excuse me. It is the Montana Geospatial Information Act. Okay, are there any commenters on Zoom?
I have two hands up. The first one is Jackie Scott.
Okay. Jackie?
Unless your hand may be still up from the last comment. Give her 10
Okay,
seconds.
Jackie must be,
Okay.
okay, is there another?
There's one more. The Butte Silver Bow Public Library has their hand up for comment on the Montana Geospatial Information Act.
I apologize. My hand was up from earlier.
That's okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
that's fine. All right. Are there any questions that need to be asked to make this more understandable about the Montana Geospatial Information Act?
I would like to ask a question. This is a large part of our budget and what we do and our responsibilities. And I'm trying to make myself knowledgeable about it, but I find it very difficult. That might be just me, and I will take blame for that. I wondered if it would be possible if we had time at one of the meetings to allow for maybe a demonstration, if walk through, one time after one of our reception at the new building, I went upstairs and Evan was showing Bruce some things that we're doing with the LiDAR.
Mhm.
And it was very interesting. I just happened to walk in while they were showing it, but I was wondering if anybody else would find it helpful to do kind of a hands-on training or watching or being involved in what this all looks like. And maybe it's just me, but I'm that kind of learner. I'm more of a hands-on learner. So is anyone else finding this challenging to understand?
Maybe this would be a presentation we could have during our work session to, to get demonstrations on some of these things.
That'd be fine. Okay, during,
But not if the other commissioners are not
no,
having this struggle.
no, I understand your point.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I think it's a good point, but I think it's a time for other business.
right. For the work session, we have
Yeah.
other
I think we need to
items. We
Address this
probably would have to.
particularly, and then address this, other business at the end of this meeting.
Okay,
Talk about the
I see
idea
what
of
you're saying.
how we get better trained on geospatial GIS business. Does
Okay.
that sound okay? Madam Chair,
okay,
thank you.
okay. All right. So are there any other questions that need to be asked? Or any more comments? Okay, is there a motion to accept the Montana Geospatial Information Act rules? Okay, is there a second? Okay, it has been properly moved and seconded that we accept the Montana Geospatial Information Act rules. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we will vote on the motion, which is to accept the Montana Geospatial Information Act rules. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. I say aye also.
Robin, I was an I. This is Elsie.
Okay, thanks, Elsie. Okay, the motion to accept the Montana Geospatial Information Act rules has been approved by a voice vote. Okay, next we have our new administrative rules.
Can I share? a quick
Yes.
Okay, just real quick.
Yes, sorry.
Erin, it's okay. Erin Fashaway, our JS coordinator, shared in chat. As always, I'll be happy to give a demonstration and take them through JS 101. I present it in small digestible portions.
Perfect, Aaron, thank you. Okay, so now we go on to the new administrative rules are necessary to enact Senate Bill 60 adopted by the legislature to authorize the state library to create an enterprise fund to fund the operations of the Montana State Reference Network, ARM 10.102. Are there any questions that need to be asked to make this more understandable? Anyone? Is there any public comment? Okay, is there a motion to accept 10.102 Montana State Reference Network Fund to Fund rules?
I so move.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, It has been properly moved and seconded that we accept 10.102 Montana State Reference Network Fund to Fund rules. Seeing there is no more further discussion, we will now vote on the motion, which is to accept the 10.102 Montana State Reference Network Fund to Fund rules. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The motion to accept the Montana State Reference Network Fund to Fund rules has been approved by a voice vote. Yes.
Kara said maybe to remind people how to, or to raise their hands in Zoom if they want to comment.
Yes.
Yeah, that was all.
Yes, so now for this one, should we remind them to raise their hands? Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. Okay, so this one is the definitions, yes, okay. It's the proposed administrative rules revision, clarify what state funding is tied to public library
Exactly.
standards, and to amend the reference to tribal college libraries to match the language found in Montana Code Annotated ARM 10.102 definitions and 10.102.4003.
Yep.
Okay, are there any questions that need to be asked to make this more understandable?
I have a question regarding 10.102.4003. We have that attached to our agenda, and on page 3, it's point 4 in the last paragraph on page 3. It discusses what happens when a county has no public library. And in the last part of it, it says, the state aid which would have gone to the county will be allotted to the Federation Headquarters Library in whose area this county is located for use in Federation activities. I seem to remember that we do no longer have Federation Headquarters libraries.
That refers to the Federation coordinators, and so we do still have the coordinators for each federation.
Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions or public comment? Okay, is there a motion to accept 10.102 definitions and 10.102.403?
I so move.
Is there a second?
No, second. Point of clarification.
Yes.
I'm not, I think I have this right, but on 10.102.403, the crossed out lines, the part that starts now is 1, that was always there. It's just we're removing that part. And this other part was already there. We're not replacing it with that.
That's correct. The crossed out lines in 10.102.403 have been moved over to the new rule definitions to have a rule that's very clear.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
Okay, it has been properly moved and seconded that we accept 10.102 definitions and 10.102.403. Seeing there is no further discussion, we will now vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. I say aye. The motion to accept 10.102 definitions and 10.102.403 has been approved by a voice vote. Okay. The next is the final administrative rules adoption 10.102.1158 library board governance and working with the director. Proposed administrative rules revisions to clarify the intent of the library budget standard and to amend the reference to tribal college libraries to match the language found in Montana Code Annotated. Are there any questions that need to be asked to make this more understandable? Is there any public comment? Okay, is there a motion to accept 10.102.1158 library board governance and working with the director. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. It has been properly moved and seconded that we accept 10.102.1158 library board governance and working with the director. Seeing there's no further discussion, we will now vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
Robin, I was an I.
And I'm an aye. Okay, the motion to accept 10.102.1158 library board governance and working with the director has been approved by a voice vote. Okay, now we are on to the MSL Commission. We propose to rescind the administrative rule 10.102.1160. I would like to ask commentators on Zoom to raise their hand to be counted, please. Okay. Also, is there anyone in the room that would like to comment? We have two. Okay.
Looks like there's 6 hands up for comments online. I'm just gonna read the names to make sure everyone raised hands. So I have Jackie, Dave, Ingram, Heidi, sorry, so Heidi, Mitch, and the Sarah, and the Butte Silverbow Public Library.
And then we have 2 in the room, so, okay, all right. Okay, so we'll start with the people in the room first. They will be given 3 minutes of public comment. Okay, so we welcome you. This is the MSL Commission has proposed to rescind Administrative Rule 10.102.1160 personnel. Directors of libraries that serve over 25,000 people have a Master's of Library Science or equivalent degree.
And I'll give a 20-second warning.
I am not a proponent, I'm an opponent. You still want me to go first?
Yes, opponents usually go first, right? Okay, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, commissioners, thank you. And thank you for the work you do for public libraries. We all appreciate it. My name is Judy Meadows. I talked to you last week. I'm chair of the Lewis and Clark Library Board. I'm concerned that your stance appears to many of us to be one that supports local control rather than what is best for the community, the library, and the library's staff. Libraries are complicated institutions, and the larger they are, the more complicated they are. Have any of you actually spent a day in the life of a director of a large public library? The skills, knowledge, and ethos of that director were learned while in graduate school. There, the future director learns the skills and temperament her future staff members should have and what her community deserves. I hope you will take politics out of this issue and think about the quality of the people you want running these libraries. This is why in the past, library funding for large libraries was attached to this qualification. I don't think any of you want a local county commission or library commission to appoint a cousin or a neighbor just because that person needs a job. And that is exactly what has happened in the past in other states and what could happen in Montana. Think of what's best for the library. Thank you very much.
Good morning, members of the commission. Robert Filipovich. I live in Helena, Filipovich. I have comments online, but I want to comment specifically on the reasoning provided on the library website for this proposed elimination of the master's degree. Frankly, the reasoning is vague. I don't know what is meant by size in that reasoning. Is it the size of the geographic area? Is it the size of the population or something else? And I'm certainly not aware of any example in that reasoning that explains what is meant by skill set or knowledge base. I would ask members of this commission to ask themselves just what exactly is found in a master's degree of library science. It's a fairly substantial set of requirements, of course. And since the reasoning provided on this website does not make any examples of what skill set might be needed, or what knowledge base might be needed, I suggest to you that that's hardly a basis for elimination of this long-standing master's degree requirement. And then, of course, you must have read in the 400 and somewhere in those 400 plus comments in opposition that there's a considerable complexity to the library's tasks. And of course, the larger the task, the more knowledge, specific knowledge to running a library is needed. So at best, I hope you reconsider the reasoning that's already provided. Skill set, knowledge, and size are not specific enough to make such a substantial, remarkable, unnecessary change. Thank you.
Say that again.
Comments online.
Yes, okay. Okay, we'll take comments online. Doesn't matter, just go ahead.
Okay, sorry guys. Okay, so first one up is Jackie Scott. Jackie, let me know if this is a hand up from before.
Hello, this is Jackie Scott again. I would concur with what Judy Meadows had to say about this and add that myself as a librarian in a small community, it is not required that I have a Library of Science degree, and I do not. I, however, rely heavily upon my fellow librarians who do have their Library of Science degree. I think it's imperative that we have as many librarians who have their degree as possible, and especially in the larger communities. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Next is David Ingram.
Good morning. My name's Dave Ingram, Flathead County trustee. I'm speaking for myself. I support the commission's decision to remove the MLS degree requirement for large libraries and thereby leveling the field and returning this responsibility to local communities. It has been said that local control is not a standard. I agree. It's more than that. It is a guiding principle that should be followed whenever possible. Decisions should be placed as close to the entities that either reap the benefits or suffer the consequences. To the objection that change is for one library is not an argument at all. Our system of government is charged with protecting the rights of the minority as well as the majority. Further, to the argument that this will undermine the profession, I say, welcome to the real world. As a physician, I must continuously compete against nurse practitioners and physician's assistants. As MBAs have to compete against BA finance majors, lawyers against paralegals, and even software programs. To stay relevant, we must demonstrate value to differentiate ourselves, not by creating artificial barriers to entry for the alternative educational pathways. Let the market decide. and the statement, library boards have always had a choice in who to hire. This is true, but disingenuous, because if you don't hire who we want, you will be financially punished. So I thank the commissioners for considering this change and also this opportunity to comment. Have a good morning.
Next is Heidi Rodell.
Hello, my name is Heidi Rodell, that's Roedel, and I live in the Flathead County. I'm a trustee of the Imagineif Library in Kalispell and a current president of the Tamarack Federation, but today I represent myself. As I stated, I am a trustee and have served over 2 years with a director that had an MLS and under two years with the director who did not have an MLS. I personally had respect for both directors and saw them both as skilled professionals. Both had experience working in libraries before becoming a director. Both had continuing education in library services and certifications from state libraries. I was on the committee that went through the interviewing process when we hired our last director. We worked with a professional hiring firm and they brought us candidates who had training and experience in library service. When looking at the whole picture of what our library needed, I feel we made the decision that was best for our community and library. Our public library lost funding, but what we gained was of value. Our library is running well. All of our staff have had raises. Our books are on the shelves and not in crates in the basement. Our doors are open and we continue to have great programs and good customer service. Please vote to allow the trustees to have more options and not less. Please do not require few libraries to have additional requirements that can be challenging to meet at times. I believe that each community should be able to decide for themselves what is best for their tax-funded libraries. Thank you for providing funding for the federations and for the training that the state library provides.
Next up is Mitch Grady.
Hi, I'm Mitch Grady, GRADY. I'm in Livingston at the Park County Public Library, but I am representing myself today. So thank you, Madam Chair and the Commission for letting me speak. The Commission's objection to the MLS standard for large public libraries leans heavily into the principle of local control. Reasoning being that the requirement for libraries to meet a standard in order to receive certain funds takes away a library board's control over, in this case, the hiring process at large public libraries, or that it punishes libraries which don't meet the standards. This got me thinking, as I'm sure it did the commissioners and anyone else doing their homework on the issue, about all the other public library standards. Here are a few that one might believe limit local control. Public library boards are to meet at least 6 times a year. Public library boards are to receive at least 3 hours of continuing ed each year. Public library boards regularly review library policies, and no single policy goes more than 4 years without review. That's a fun one. The public library's budget shows year-to-year growth reflecting community need. Here's one that's different for differently sized libraries. Libraries serving more than 25,000 people are to be open at least 50 hours per week. And speaking as someone who's had to help develop a library budget, not to mention a staff schedule, I can guarantee that that one has generated far more headaches than the MLS standard ever has. What's more, one wonders why the commission hasn't chafed against Montana Code Annotated 22-1-102, which limits its own hiring process, stating the commission shall employ as its executive officer a librarian who is a graduate of an accredited library school. I could go on, but that's probably enough. Now, some have stated in earlier meetings that repealing a standard appears to put us on a slippery slope toward removing other standards. But actually, I don't see it as a slippery slope. Slippery slopes are insidious, and this is not. In fact, for anyone who sincerely believes that the MLS standard unfairly diminishes a public library board's control, the conclusion follows directly. Why do we have any public library standard? With that in mind, the commission can now, by my life, do one of two things. Either stick to its guiding principles and begin working to repeal all public library standards, since their very existence is apparently a blatant affront to local control, or it can repeal just the MLS standard, and in doing so, affirm what everyone in this meeting probably suspects, that this is nothing more than political retribution for perceived injustice at one library. In poker terms, I am calling the commission's hand. Thank you.
Next is Sarah Widger.
Hello, my name is Sarah Widger. I'm the Montana Library Association Vice President, President-elect, and I'm an employee of the Bozeman Public Library. I just wanted to point out to the commission, after saying thank you for allowing more public comment on this issue, that we all public libraries rely on the Montana State Library and the work that the commission does. And we would not be as successful as we are without these standards that have been our guiding principles for many years. And because of that, I want to point out that the Montana State Library patrons, their demographics that they serve are mainly libraries and their staff members. And so when you take into account the public comment, the more than 400 people that wrote in saying that they oppose the changes to this 10.102.1160, that is the population that the state library serves. Those are your patrons. These are your patrons speaking up, including library staff, librarians, directors, trustees statewide for libraries of all sizes, and former commissioners, as well as the general public, people not related to libraries, not working in libraries, not trustees of libraries. They have written in. 71% of people opposing the removal of this standard should speak for itself. And I want to just reiterate that it's not a close discussion. 4-1, those are wide odds. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak, and I hope that you'll pay attention to your public. Thank you.
Next is Butte Silverbow.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. My name is Steph Johnson. I'm the director of Butte Silverbow Public Library. My board of trustees has asked me to bring their concerns to the public comment portion of our meeting this morning. Again, thank you for letting me participate. The Board of Trustees of the Butte Silverbow Public Library strongly disagrees with recent consideration to discard this professional standard. The Board of Trustees requests that you reconsider this course of action. As you well know, of course, every local library board has control over their library or library system. Any board finding a standard objectionable, unreasonable, or detrimental is free to ignore it utterly. Any board may also appeal the standard. There is an established process in place. As this standard was very recently reviewed and approved, discarding it now reflects poorly on the work, expertise, experience, and recommendations of the Public Library Standards Committee and all involved. It is unclear how removing this decades-old educational standard supports the mission of promoting excellence. The Board of Trustees, again, requests you reconsider this course of action. Thank you.
One more comment that came in one hand. Mark Wetherington.
Hi, my name is Mark Wetherington, last name Wetherington. I'm director of the Bitterroot Public Library in Hamilton. I am a director with an MLS. I just want to speak to the, others have spoken much more eloquently and articulately regarding the facts and the sort of emotions behind this. So I just want to ask the commission rhetorical questions about the process. This standard was revised 2019 to 2020. It's very new. I don't have any problem with having a discussion. And I think there have been some, very, interesting, debates about this standard, but I just have a problem with it being done just willy-nilly outside of the kind of review of the standards in their entirety and as a context. If the commission wants to task the state library with reviewing the entire standards and reviewing this explicitly, that seems, a reasonable course of governance. But to just start cherry picking stuff out of these less than 2 years really after they've been into effect, it just seems very capricious and just frankly ridiculous to do that. There was no pushback against this standard in 2019 when I served on that committee, that task force to revise these. If there is, then, we never heard about it. I think it's fine to have this discussion, but I just think it should be done in the proper context. And this just doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like a big waste of time. And I would just encourage the commission to vote against this and to address it in a more proper context if they so desire. Thank you.
That's the last hand up.
Okay, is there any discussion before we make a motion? Okay.
First of all, thank you to all who took the time to comment. Either way, I was overwhelmed by the number of responses. My vote will still be to oppose this, as I still believe that standards should never be lowered and that we should strive to be the best. Reading those comments has just confirmed for me that the majority of our patrons, librarians, and the task force overwhelmingly agreed that the standard should remain. I believe that their local control already exists within those standards. And I came across a quote the other day that was, "You won't always get what you strive for, but you will get what you settle for."
Madam Chair, I would like to make a comment. I know I've spoken on this issue several times, and I do so not to beat my opinion into people or whatever, but just because I think people, when they share with us, have a right to know how we feel. I think it's part of the communication process. The gentleman in the audience, I think, asked some very valid questions. I think he asked about the numbers, and I think for me, what we were referring to is that only the populations of over 25,000 people need to abide by the requirement of the Masters of Library Science. And therefore, I think we have to constantly remind ourselves that out of over 116, 18 libraries, only 8 libraries are controlled by this. And I want to repeat that. Out of all of this, only refers to 8 libraries in Montana out of either 116 or 118, depending on, I'm sure, what we do with the tribal libraries, et cetera. I would like you to just echo what Peggy said. I appreciate the input. For me, this is not about politics. I was not on this commission when issues have developed with the library that people keep referring to, although I'm really impressed with what I've learned since then about that incredible library. But it's not a question of punishing or whatever. I know we've been accused of that in a lot of the comments, also called a fascist, which I find really interesting because fascism is a centralized power. It means you want power centralized away from the people. So I would just, for purposes of education and words, say that what we are asking is anti-fascism, get it back to the people. I think it's really important to recognize that trustees and boards who serve at a local level are not paid, and they are very dedicated people, and they are volunteers. I get frustrated as a person with an English degree and a master's that we don't value language. I would ask people to remember we are not lowering standards, we are not bypassing standards. Again, I repeat, we are not lowering any standards. We're not bypassing any standards. We are directly passing standards to a local governance board, and they are welcome to raise the standards. They can require a PhD. I can honestly see a few libraries in Montana, my own in Bozeman, requiring a PhD if they so chose. They can raise the standards. I do not see them lowering the standards. I do see them changing them, maybe to an IT requirement or a management requirement. I appreciate the comments, but I would like to point out that I'm somewhat puzzled by all these librarians who are not controlled by this requirement, telling us we should put it in place for 8 librarians. To me, that's almost like having, of course we do, I go to a physical therapist who I greatly respect, and they have to meet standards. They have to have physical therapy degrees. They have to have their training. It would be like the physical therapy board passing that if you had more than 5 physical therapists in your clinic, you have to have a master's in management, and all the individual men and women who practice on their own say, great idea, make them do that. It doesn't apply to them. And I would compliment many, many of those librarians who have called in to say they themselves have a master's of library science because they pursued it. I think that makes the point that they can do that if they choose. I really appreciated the last comment where the person said, you represent us as librarians. That is part of the picture, but it's not the full picture. For me, on this commission, I represent the senior citizens who use the library. I represent the parents who use the library, the children, the taxpayers who pay for the library. And they don't belong to a library association. They don't have access easily in their viewpoint in their life to what's going on in this commission, but they are very involved in their local governance of their local libraries. And they need to know that that local library is representing them and that they have a voice there. And the last comment I would make is that it's not a political comment for me. It's a deeply held philosophical comment that the heart of our great republic in America is to have the governance of the people, the closest to the people. That's when people say local control and just sort of, oh, it's like almost a bad word or something. To me, it's the heart of our republic. And that people should be governed by the people closest to them. And that's the taxpayers who pay, the parents, the people who are being served. So please understand that as commissioners, we have the entire viewpoint. And I do have deep respect, but I'm not lowering anyone's standards. We are just putting it where the people can talk freely to those who control their libraries.
Are there any further comments?
Madam Chair.
Brian?
I would respectfully disagree with Commissioner Hall. I think we are actually removing a standard. That's what this vote is about. So that is what is under discussion. I am going to oppose this change. There was a task force that was created that did a tremendous amount of work. A lot of resources and time were invested in that, and it overwhelmingly voted to retain the standard. 77% of the public comments that were received have opposed removing this requirement, this standard. And so I think it's in the best interests of libraries of large libraries to have professional librarians leading them. I think it is not in their best interests for them not to. And yes, in general, those libraries are going to hire MLS degreed librarians. So, but I really think that this is the wrong direction to be taking. And I would urge the commission to vote against this change. Thank you.
I would like to comment. I've read all the written comments and it was a lot, but I eat words for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so it wasn't really that hard. I like reading. And a lot of the comments reflected a kind of fear that if we, as a commission, abandon this particular standard, it's going to be the Wild West. of libraries and we're gonna have no more standards and people are gonna hire completely unqualified library directors, which is a little bit insulting for all the citizen volunteers that are trustees for our public libraries. But I would also like to remind us all that removing one standard does not do away with standards for quality that our libraries have to meet. I would like to ask Genevieve to please pull up the list of library standards that's on our website so we can just all look at those and remind ourselves of how many quality assuring requirements are in place, even if we abandon that. So that's on the Montana State Library website.
Jenny's gonna help me because
I forget what the
We moved this
document
far 'cause
is
it's in the way.
called.
Can we go to the commission?
Public Library Standards List, something like that.
And find the best place to access it.
It's further up the top, Public Library Standards document, I think. It's underlined up
yeah.
there. Yeah.
Thank you.
So they have to do with the library board. There are already a lot of requirements on the trustees and things they have to do as a board. Then if you scroll down,
Sorry for the black boxes. Zoom's being finicky today.
there are a lot of standards that are community facing, like one of the commenters here on Zoom mentioned regarding how many hours a library has to be open, what libraries have to provide. And then there are standards regarding personnel. So the one we're talking about is number 7 here on page 2. And if we eliminate that, we leave 30 other quality assurance standards in place. So when I look at that, I just want to assuage any fears. It's not going to be the no holds barred, every library does whatever they want kind of scenario if we abandon this one standard. Another comment I would like to make based on reading some of the written comments. I'm going to quote 2 sentences from 2 separate public comments just to illustrate that. One commenter from Kalispell said, and I quote, "To remove the MLS requirement gives the library board too much power over library authority and library policies." Then I want to quote a person from Hot Springs. "This rule change puts the trustees in charge of running the library." I think my response to both of these quotes is that's actually how it's supposed to be according to MCA. So Genevieve, if you could pull up first MCA 22-1-310. So we can look at that one.
And then go to 22.
22-1-310.
This one?
Yeah. Okay. Chief librarian, which I assume means library director, right?
There we go. Sorry for the black boxes again.
So this part of the code says, "The board of trustees of each library shall appoint and set the compensation of the chief librarian," which is the library director. So to me, this part of our code clearly says hiring the director is the prerogative of the board of trustees. That's not my opinion, that's Montana code. And then would you please put up the preceding one, which is 22-1-309.
Sorry, let me get this box out of it.
And this is just as an information item, to give everybody an idea of what the code says library trustees should be in charge of. And I'm not going to read all the details. I'm just going to read the main points. The Library Board of Trustees shall have exclusive control of the expenditure of the Public Library Fund, of construction or lease of library buildings, and of the operation and care of the library. The Library Board shall adopt bylaws and rules, establish a central public library and branches, have the power to contract, have the power to acquire and hold real and personal property, pay necessary expenses, prepare an annual budget, make an annual report to the governing body, and last in paragraph 9, exercise such other powers not inconsistent with law, necessary for the effective use and management of the library. That to me sounds extremely broad and gives the library board a lot of power. It sounds to me like library trustees by law are supposed to be in charge. And as we saw, 22-1-310 explicitly puts the trustees in charge of hiring directors. So based on those 2 quotes that I gave you, saying that eliminating the degree requirement gives too much power to library board trustees is truly misguided. I urge all who are wrestling with this issue to really familiarize themselves with the Montana Code as it applies to public libraries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, is there a motion to accept the proposed rescinding of Administrative Rule 10-102 .1160 personnel?
So who got that one?
Who made the motion? And okay, Tom made the motion and
Second.
and Tammy will second it. It has been properly moved and seconded that we accept the proposed rescinding of Administrative Rule 10.102.1160 personnel. Is there any further discussion? Seeing there's no further discussion, we will now vote on the motion.
Madam Chair, could I request a roll call on this vote, please?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. We will have a roll call for the motion to accept the proposed rescinding of Administrative Rule 10.102.1160 personnel. All those in, okay, so we'll do a roll.
Yeah.
Who do I start with? So I just,
Yeah.
okay, we'll start with Carmen.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
No.
Elsie,
Aye.
and I'm aye. Okay, the motion to accept the proposed rescinding of Administrative Rule 10.102.1160 personnel has been approved by a roll call.
Madam Commissioner,
Yes.
this is Katie. Before we move on to anything else in the agenda, so just so we're on the public hearing still, I need to get a rationale from the commission, what you would like written pursuant to the MCA for overruling opposition to, I believe there was one opposition to the Geospatial Land Act, and then the rationale for the opposition to the personnel change, because I have to provide the Secretary of State that rationale when we submit these final rules. So if the commission could kindly provide me with what they would like that reasoning to be for overruling the public comment, I'm going to write that down so we can get to work on getting these rules to the Secretary of State in time.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I suggest that our legal staff extract that from from the materials already provided during the discussion.
I would agree.
Katie, does that satisfy your request?
Yes, ma'am. I'll just pull that from the reasoning we provided when we published the notices then.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Katie.
I would caution against Katie's comment, overturn public comments, because we did not hear from all of the public in Montana. We heard from some of the public in Montana. So I think that's a very, I would be concerned about that weighted comment.
She's probably referring to the 77% that
Yeah.
was. Yes.
I'd make that clear.
Just
Because
part of
Yes. Oh, yes. Sorry,
part of the rules.
Commissioner Hall.
Go ahead. You go ahead. I'll let the lawyer say.
Go ahead, Katie.
Overruling the considerations urged against an adoption of a rule.
Okay, the task force, et cetera. Yes. Okay. Okay, we were now going to adjourn for lunch, but it's pretty early. So what do you want to do?
break?
Should we take a quick
we
break
can
and
move
then
things down.
we'll take a quick break and then we can come back for some of the reports. Is that appropriate? Okay. It is 11:15. We'll be back by 11:25.
Is Evan coming back? Did you get that? I sent it to you.
Yeah, I didn't have time.
That's all right.
I will.
Well, it's very.
Everyone, this is Elsie.
Giving you incredible power.
I don't know if you can hear me or not, Genevieve.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Are there any more votes for this afternoon's meetings?
Acceptance of the meeting dates.
Just acceptance of the meeting dates, Elsie.
And I think you have a quorum. So I thank everyone for allowing me to participate remotely. I believe I'm going to get the state superintendent. So thank you all. Blessings this Christmas. Bye-bye.
Blessings to you
Wait,
too.
Elsie, before
Elsie,
you
just a
hang up.
second. Elsie, you still there?
Yes, ma'am.
We're not in meeting. This is Tammy. Just wanted to see you. Are you going to be in town at all? We're not in meeting. This is.
You know, I'm just working in my office, just
Okay.
down from the Capitol. Of course I'm here. But
Always.
we've just got a lot of crazy meetings. You know, school is still in session, so are we. But I am here and I do appreciate the ability to work remotely at this point and to participate in the meetings. Thank you
Just
all for
wanted to
looking.
see you.
I
Thank
am
you.
here.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think we're back.
We ready? Okay, we are back. We were going to adjourn for lunch at 12:30 and we're just gonna try to work on through if that's all right with everybody. Welcome back. We'll continue on with the MSL Commission meeting for the purpose of saving time in our meetings as we proceed through the informational items on the agenda. We will allow approximately 10 minutes per presentation. I will ask each presenter if this is enough time for each one of them. Then I will open the floor to any clarifying questions. Okay, the first present.
Katie Bauman's has her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, Katie, go ahead.
I'm so sorry, Madam Commissioner and Commissioners. I just wanted to make sure I had everything down to submit these rules, and I went back to the statute, and it actually requires me to incorporate in the statement the reasons for overruling the considerations urged. So if in the rationale we provided for both the geospatial and the rule for the dropping the MLS requirement, we don't specifically address the reason why the commission overruled, which is going to be required pursuant to the statute for me to send to the Secretary of State. So I apologize for circling back to that, but I just wanted to catch you all so we could address that before you move on.
Okay. Okay, so for the geospatial.
Do you want to talk to that?
I'd be happy to address the geospatial comments. There were two comments related to the Geospatial Information Act. One was from Fish, Wildlife and Parks. They were commenting on 10.102.9104, the rule pertaining to the geospatial information plan. They raised the question, under what circumstances might we update or rewrite the geospatial information plan, and suggested that information be incorporated in the rule. And after discussing that point with staff, we determined that it would be impossible to list all of the reasons why we might update the land information plan. The plan itself consists of goals for partner outreach and coordination, MSDI data development, and our grant awards. And the goals of the plan reflect the priorities of the geospatial community based on input from the Geospatial Advisory Council, the staff, and of course, the State Library Commission. And so as these priorities change, so will the plan. And then their second comment was about wanting to ensure that they and other state agencies have the ability to provide comments on the geospatial information plan. And the Geospatial Information Advisory Council does have state agency representation, and it's the responsibility of that agency representative to seek feedback from other state agencies. And so through that mechanism, FWP and any other state agencies would have the opportunity to provide input onto the geospatial information plan. And then the final comment was from a Miss Ruth Barefoot, and she seemed opposed to the rules in general. However, as is noted in your materials, the rule changes are necessary to reflect changes in the legislation. So those would be the comments that I would submit.
I suggest we accept the librarian's recommendation.
Hand vote, just not, just, yeah, hands up. So then the personnel. Mhm.
Does anyone have any suggestions on? Oh, sorry. Does anyone have any? Pardon me? Okay.
Now we just need one to the personnel change, a
Right,
response
for the
to
personnel change.
comments who are opposed to that standard change. You have to
Okay, so
provide a
what
rationale.
what would be some of the rationale?
Madam Chair, I would suggest that we just take what Carmen shared. I thought that was very, very clear and basis for law.
The references to the other,
All of Carmen's
I'm s-
statement
okay,
was very clear.
all, did you hear that, Katie? So if you would refer to Carmen's statement, is that,
Yes, Madam Commissioner, that will suffice.
okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Katie. Okay, so we will now go on to, the first presentation is the Network Advisory Council meeting report. And who is doing that?
I'm going to do that.
Oh, Peggy, is 10 minutes long enough, Peggy?
Oh, plenty.
Okay.
I attended my first NAC meeting, and it was very informative. I liked working with the librarians. They had several topics that they discussed. One that the Trust for Montana Libraries did a presentation and would like to focus some attention on advancing early literacy efforts, and that was very well received by the libraries. The staff will research model programs that have proven to improve reading levels and would like to find ways to help libraries and communities work with the Ready to Read and all the programs that they offer at the libraries. And the Trust and the Montana Library Association plan to seek legislative support to work towards appropriating funds as stated in the statewide interlibrary resource sharing program. So we've done that several times. We always try to present to the legislature and such that we need to have more funding for some of our programs, so that they can have some, like the shared catalog or some of those programs paid for more from the state, and allow them to use their local money in other ways. It says currently the legislature appropriates no funds for resource sharing, so staff will research what amount of funding would be needed to fully fund current and future resource sharing opportunities, which include the Montana Shared Catalog, the Courier, the OCLC Group Services Contract, and the Montana Library to Go, etc. There was also a big discussion on the single cost share formula. The libraries are working on that formula, and maybe Jenny wants to explain that one a little more, that this needs to be addressed, and librarians are asking for help on how to explain this to the board. I think explanation for us would be better too.
Sure, I'm happy to provide that overview. As you know, that how different kinds of statewide services like the Montana Shared Catalog, the Courier, OCLC Group Services, and Montana Library to Go are funded is through a mix of some of the federal funds that we receive through the state library and then local contributions. And each of those programs has its own formula for determining what the local share will be. And they're based on different metrics that can change. And because they're based on different metrics, it takes a great deal of staff time to produce the budget requirements for each library to fulfill. There's some concerns about the metrics that are used in determining those formulas. For example, the Montana Shared Catalog cost share formula is a combination of the volume of titles a library holds in its library and the number of users it has. And so it could cost a library more to participate in the shared catalog if they have larger collections and more users, which is something we don't want to encourage. We want to encourage that without having libraries to incur more costs. And then some of the cost share formulas themselves, the actual metrics that are used to determine the costs are woefully outdated and hard to update. And so the goal of the discussion of a single cost share formula is to use one cost sharing mechanism, one basis of metrics to determine that local cost allocation, and use metrics that don't deter the use of those services and don't deter good quality library services. And in looking at how best to formulate that kind of formula, we've been looking at population served as that metric, in part because we use a population-based metric as a part of the distribution of the per capita per square mile state aid. And so there's already some basis for using that formula. By adopting a new formula, it does mean that some libraries will end up paying more than they're currently paying, and some libraries will end up paying less than they're currently paying, though the service remains the same. And so there was recognition and support at the NAC for the idea of moving forward with a single cost share formula, but also recognition that this is an important decision that local libraries are going to have to make. It's up to the local library boards to adopt their budgets that would include these changes in cost share formula. And so we heard from librarians the importance of having good, clear communication and reasoning for the library directors to share with their boards about why we would be making this move to a single cost share formula.
Madam Chair. Jenny, could you explain, is the difficulty, is the calculation done library by library?
It is done library by library. It's, we have these metrics that we use in the formula, and then the calculation is determined library by library. So library X has a collection size and a number of users. Library Y has a collection size and number of users. That's an example. In Montana Library to Go, it's based on circulation from back in 2017. So it is, we take that formula and then apply it library by library.
A follow-up? Can you estimate the person hours involved in the whole job
Of
of making the assessments and doing the calculations for all 116 libraries?
I don't think I could provide you that information off the top of my head, but we could go back and do some estimating.
Question?
Go ahead.
What are so if we have 4 main shared resources right now, each of them, the cost is calculated based on a different metric. Could you share what those 4 different formulas are right now? And did they come about because they were established they were custom made for each shared resource as it was adopted to make it reasonable and fair each time?
I'm afraid I couldn't explain the nuances of each cost share formula right now. That's something we could certainly provide you at a future meeting. But to your question about how they were developed, yes, exactly. A new program was established and we looked at some of the basis of the costs of that program and determined a cost share formula based on how those costs were determined. So they sort of developed organically. Some of them have changed over time. As we heard at the Network Advisory Council meeting, some of the basis of those costs are just woefully out of date at this point. They deter growth. They make it difficult for libraries to budget because the formulas themselves can be hard to predict how those costs will be allocated. This is something that's going to take a considerable amount of time with the Network Advisory Council before any kind of formal recommendation would be made.
So are those formulas different because actually the cost to the state library is based on different calculations, and therefore, as you pass those costs on to the library, the formula is different for each different resource because the cost to the state library is different.
Not sure if I'm going to answer your question, so if I don't,
okay,
let me know. With the exception of the shared catalog, the cost to the state library is just the cost of a contract. We are contracting for a service. The shared catalog is somewhat different in that there's also staff costs involved with operating the shared catalog. But in terms of the fact that the cost to the state is just a contract and we're separating out those costs based on the formula, there really isn't a lot that's unique about the cost that we bear that should be reflected in a cost formula. Does that make sense?
So I'm just trying to understand it. So the cost of one contract might be based on number of users, and therefore when you pass the cost on to the individual libraries, you were trying to gauge the number of users at the individual library, and the other contract cost to the state library is based on collection size. Therefore, you created a formula for this particular shared resource for the individual libraries to be based on their collection because it reflects your incurred cost as the state library. Is that how it works? Or you negotiate the contract, you negotiate a flat fee, and then you try to pass it on somehow to the libraries?
It's a little bit of a mix based on the type of the contract. For the shared catalog, and I'm probably getting a little bit too far into the weeds that I'm really comfortable with, so we should have a deeper discussion about that. But the shared catalog, for example, where we don't have a contract that's based on the total number of holdings and the total number of users, even though that is how we determined 20 years ago that we wanted to separate those costs. For OCLC, for example, there are some metrics involved in how those costs are determined.
So I guess where I'm trying to go is if the state library's cost of this resource is based on a certain metric, then we calculate it out to the individual libraries on those same metrics. If the differences come from that, maybe we need to keep the differences, but if not, then a single cost share formula that makes it easier for each library would make sense to me.
And I think that's exactly the direction we're going. You know, we negotiate usually a 3 to 5 year contract with cost escalations that really aren't based on those kind of usage-based metrics in large part.
Okay.
So I think it does warrant a larger discussion, and we're grateful for the NAC's involvement in helping us think through those questions.
And then one last comment, maybe instead of library service population, it would actually make sense if we base any of a new cost share formula on population, that we maybe base it on actual active library card holders, because we should maybe benefit those libraries who actually serve a huge part of their population. Whereas libraries that maybe don't do a great job and leave 50% of their potential users in the dust because they're not doing a good job and not attracting these people to their library, we shouldn't maybe calculate it on the service area if they're not doing a good job providing service.
Thanks for that feedback.
An idea.
Madam Chair. So in some of the scenarios that have been envisioned, there are winners and losers. People are going to pay more and people are going to pay less. Is there a general or that would, if that was enacted? Generally speaking, are larger libraries going to be paying more and smaller libraries paying less under one of those scenarios?
Right now, in most scenarios, well, in general, the larger libraries have always borne a larger share of the cost because they're larger, but also because there's been a motivation for libraries to bear more of the cost because it encourages participation from all of the other libraries. And it's largely been the two main academic libraries that have borne a substantial amount of those costs. Under these scenarios, if those larger libraries are paying a smaller overall percentage, then some of those cost increases trickle down to the smaller libraries, and some of the smaller libraries see increasing costs under some of these scenarios.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I ask Janie a question? Oh, I dropped I finally found it and then lost it. Okay, I'm going back further with the NAC, because I thought, I need a clear understanding of what they're doing and what the funding is. We're talking about the funding formula. But the Network Advisory Council, when I was studying about it, said it's creating core service committees that are tasked with evaluation programs and services and making recommendations about future services. So they have 5 committees: the Cultural Resource Committee, the East Resource Committee, the Programming Committee, the Resource Sharing Committee, and the Technology Committee. So did those 5 committees then come back and report on how they're evaluating the libraries for need? Is that where we're at with the formula now? Is that what preceded the formula?
They're kind of a little bit different. The core service committees, they're somewhat ad hoc, but they are groups of librarians that meet to talk about how we evaluate the success of the services that we're offering. Some of those include some of these statewide programs like the Shared Catalog and Montana Library to Go. And then through those core service committees and discussions that we have with the library community, they make recommendations to the Network Advisory Council about priorities. The core service committees have not really been involved in discussions of the cost share formula. That's something that's been discussed at the Network Advisory Council level.
So once we set, however the formula is, how much money, then it will go back and decide whether it goes to these various committees or what?
The recommendation from the Network Advisory Council, if we are able to come to a single cost share formula, ultimately those would be decided on by these groups. Like the Shared Catalog has an executive or a membership committee that would vote on it. Montana Library to Go has a committee that would vote on it. And then ultimately it's up to local library boards to adopt those costs.
And then how do we pick the NAC committee members?
Yeah, so in the spring is when the committee members are up for appointment and those nominations come to the State Library Commission.
Remember them coming?
Yes.
And who were they from? Like,
Members of we had a nominating committee with members of the commission and the staff and someone on the Network Advisory Council that make recommendations to the commission.
and so are we pretty aware of moving that around the state and getting more and more people involved, Peggy?
Yep.
Small and large libraries, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, and they, right, I've seen
Mhm.
a brief description of the person and their qualifications and such, and
Mhm.
they're asked to be on it.
So yes,
The committee does look at all those areas.
And people can volunteer. They don't go out and seek just who they want, but
right.
people can volunteer that I'd like to be on it. Okay.
How do we put out the call to recruit volunteers for that board? How does the call go out?
That's usually done in the spring and we work with the Network Advisory Council chair and others to put out that call. I can't recall if that's something that's announced on Wired, the Wired Montana listserv. Tracy's nodding her head.
So it doesn't go out to the general public? We don't recruit these people from the general public?
No, that's a good question. This is an advisory council of librarians.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. That was what I wondered too.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Jenny or Peggy?
Thank you for clarifying one more acronym.
Okay, the next item is an information item presentation by staff, State Librarian Jenny Stapp. Okay, Jenny, do you need 10 minutes?
No, I'm
Whatever you want to do. We have.
let me get my computer
Okay.
fired up here again.
Okay.
Are we up to standing reports?
Or
Or is there something else I'm forgetting?
we are at you right here.
Oh, good.
Planning
Yeah.
dashboard.
Yeah. All right, we're up to your standing reports. I'm happy to take any questions about our work plan dashboard. We've provided updated metrics on the progress we're making to resolve the broken links on our website. I did want to let you know, I've been reporting at your previous meetings on the status of the adoption of a new State of Montana web template. You know that we've been on hold and making updates to our website pending the release of that template. Unfortunately, I was told last week by Director Giles from the Department of Administration that that project is stalled. And so at this point, we don't have any indication when we might receive a State of Montana template. That is of concern for us because we've been working with the Federal Department of Education to improve the accessibility of our website. And they have pointed out some concerns with the existing State of Montana template. And so we've brought those to the attention of the Department of Administration and are looking for additional guidance on when we might see a new template or how we might resolve the issues within the existing web template.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
question for Jenny. Any idea of the cost of converting the old website to the new template?
In the past, that's been fairly seamless. It would depend on the requirements of the new template. For example, the existing State of Montana template just has a small header and footer on our website. What I've been told is that the new template may have uniform fonts, uniform colors, and other components that would be more intensive. But until we see that template, it's hard to estimate.
Okay, thanks.
The one thing I did want to bring to the commission's attention and ask Melissa and Sharon just to provide a brief overview of is a new human resources dashboard. You've been asking some good questions related to employee pay and how that relates to other state agencies. And so staff put together a dashboard to provide more direct information for you.
Okay.
Mhm. Are we on this first one under 110?
Yes.
The one that,
Yep.
have we moved down to the new, are we on the
New
work
human
plan dashboard
resources.
still?
The
Or
hu-
have we moved down?
We were down to the human resource.
That's what I thought. Okay, I appreciate that. And which one were we redoing? This first one, the work plan dashboard?
The website, our
Okay.
website.
Okay,
To match the state.
To match the
yeah,
standards.
the website broken links. Yeah, that's. Thank you.
Great. On the MSL webpage from the main page, you can go down to the bottom and where we have our dashboards, and we've added a new human resources dashboard to that. The first page that you will come to is the market rate analysis. I can't read that far.
Oh,
And
right?
what we've done with this dashboard is we've identified all of our positions. We have laid out what the range is for each job code. So that's that section in white. We'll look at that first position there. That's that section in white. There's a line in the middle that identifies what the midpoint of that grade is. And as you move your cursor around, you will see those numbers come up. And then there's a green line there, and that shows where our staff is currently at in comparison to the full range and the midpoint. At the top of the page, you can clarify just below that, Genevieve, the different categories. If you want a category of job, if you're looking for a specific job title, you can look at the market ranges of who's above or below. And then this one is the state average base pay. And then right now that is, it's by default hidden, but if you do a show on that drop down, then it will insert another line there, that dotted line, and that shows you where the state average is for that job code for all the staff in the state. So that just gives you, it's just a comparison to show what the range is, where our staff is, and where the state average is for those positions. On the right there, you can see that we have, just a synopsis, we have one staff person who is above the market and 50 staff people who are all within range. And I will note for that one staff person who is above the market, that individual has been here for 32 years. And quite frankly, when I looked at the stats, almost every single person in that job code in the state is above the market because.
From that state average line.
Right. So that, yeah, that state average is way above the market because it's a low market rate, unfortunately, because especially for that position, we rely on it greatly. The second page on the dashboard, if you go up to the top, it's recruitment. And what this does is just pull together statistics about our average numbers that we get when we recruit for a position, and we'll identify by position if we hit our average, if we were below our average. It comes through the last 3 fiscal years. So that's just to kind of give you a guide point of where we are. We're generally getting a good number of applicants for our positions. Yes, Carmen.
What I don't understand are the yellow and the green squares. I'm sorry.
Sure. So the yellow squares are identifying, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, it will show that for that particular, let's just look at the first one, that GIS specialist 1, the applicants for that particular position were below the average for the whole year. So for instance, in 2020, let's see, that would be fiscal year 21. We averaged 18 applicants per recruitment that year. And so for that particular position, we had less than 18. Whereas if you go down a few, like where the accountant, we were above the number. And if you hover on those, it kind of gives you a little synopsis of what it is that is representing. Does that make sense?
Yep,
Thank
I-
you.
That document there is the one that I'm not getting a link to. So when I go to, that's when I remember I said I couldn't get a link to one, and
On the agenda, it wasn't working.
yeah, but yeah, I know. It's the new human resource dashboard, correct? Okay.
Yeah, see, if you go to the printed or the PDF.
That's what's not
there's-
correctly.
Right.
Okay, so,
Yeah,
My
is-
PDF one
Yeah, me too.
does not come, so I can't get this one. This is
You can
the,
get the live version, but it looks like the link to the PDF version's broken.
Right, the PDF version is broken
So if
I
you
will-
try to click on the link. Okay.
above it.
I did the personnel, but it doesn't have this second page.
If
It
you click
does.
it on the top of the, if you go back to that page,
Sorry. Thank you.
No, you're okay.
I tried to do this at home and then I tried the PDF one and it
It's in
said,
market rate, and then you
can't
click
link.
on this tab. For the third tab.
if you go to the live web page, the MSL
Okay.
page,
this one.
that was my mistake, and
you.
I will fix that link for the future. I know it's not.
No,
working
no,
today.
it's okay. I thank you for being patient.
yeah, at the top there, it's got the market analysis and then this little one is the recruitment. So you just click on that and that will bring up the page from our live web page.
And so again, congratulations that we get so many people wanting jobs here. That's really a compliment.
And then the third page that we have on here is staff education, and I don't believe you have a PDF for this. We just added this this past week. And we just did a breakdown of our staff that have advanced degrees, bachelor's degrees, some high school diploma. It is worth noting that 94% of our staff have a bachelor's or above. So we are a very well-educated group.
Yeah.
So that's the HR dashboard. It's something new that we've put together. If you have other ideas or things that you would like to see on there, we can let you know. I will note that pulling this information is a little bit time intensive. It's not just a report that I can run and hand to Rebecca to make her magic things work. I think to pull the information regarding the staff market rate analysis between Rebecca and I think we spent at least 8 hours pulling that information because it all had to be pulled individually from different reports and put together. So it looks pretty, but it wasn't as easy as it looks.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
First off, thank you.
Yes.
I really appreciate, I could tell this took a lot of time. I really was impressed. I asked Genevieve if we could get on the market rate analysis, one that we could print. But I don't know what that involves, but she said that she'd work. Was that too much to ask her to do? Is that gonna give her too much time?
We have we have.
Rebecca.
Oh,
Yeah,
Rebecca.
Is our best answer.
Yes, we have a print version and that's the broken PDF link. So as soon as we
That's-
fix that, you'll have a
thank you.
full printed.
Okay.
And any of these dashboards that have scrolls, there's a way to print out to see it fully scrolled over multiple pages. And I'd be happy to show that or send some screenshots to you to show you how you can do it on your own at home too.
Send it to all of us, Rebecca, if you don't mind.
You bet, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize. I will fix that link. I'm not sure where it
And
went.
then I had a question.
Yes.
I was concerned about the person, what is the accountant one? That's not is that an accountant?
It's our accountant tech.
Okay.
The pay range for that position keeps going down. I don't necessarily agree with that. The market would say that position is clearly a dime a dozen. I disagree with that, but we can't fight what the market is for those based on what they're doing the research on.
So is it an accountant degree? The person's doing accountant work? Is this?
Typically, they're doing more administrative work within the accounting field, and it doesn't require a degree for that position. Are you talking about the accountant two or the accountant?
Well, the
The
one that's
accounting tech.
paid so low was very concerning after 32 years.
Yeah, that's, yeah, that is.
It's just a very low pay range. And it has actually the market for that pay range has gone down the last two market analyses that they've done. But we are lucky to have the person that we have in that
That's what I was
position.
thinking. Anybody who did that for 32 years, I just would say thank you.
I'd say this is really, really nice info and presentation.
Thank you very much for the information.
Madam Chair, I would like to just make one suggestion, and I'd have no idea if this is easy to do or not. I would love to know who works in which work group. To just get the sense I still don't have is what work groups take up the most resources, and probably separate from that, or is that the work groups? The or which programs?
So like
on the
our
state
information
library?
managers, our information products work group, our user services work group, is that what you're referring
Yes,
to?
yeah,
Mhm.
those work groups. Who's in which work
Okay.
group and how big are the different work groups?
I can't see Rebecca, but I imagine we might be able to just have a filter drop down or something that
Well, we have
organizes them by.
we have the occupational categories, and here we're getting into some of, the restrictions in terms of how the state categorizes positions. So for instance, if you look at that occupational category, if we just click business and finance, that is the group that all of those positions fall into how the occupational categories work. If you want it broken down more specifically to us in terms of this is the library group, this is the GIS group, some of that is there. But some of it is, it gets a little hard to cut and dry categorize that, because we have, like with some of our IT people, they work across groups. At a librarian group, some of those people aren't actually librarians, but they are working in the library group. But then they're also working in the GIS group. So if we can play with it, but it's not cut and dried.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense.
I had a question on trainers. Now, we have librarians 2 and librarians 1 and 2 and supervisor, but we don't have books. So the librarians are supervising, like you're a library, but what's the job with the librarians 2, what it's supervisor and the trainer? Is the trainer Tracy?
The trainer is Colette Bartow, who administers the continuing education program. And then Kylie, help me with her last name. Great. Sorry, Kylie,
McGregor.
I apologize. She is the trainer for the Montana Shared Catalog. So she's training the librarians who use the shared catalog on the technology. Our librarians are people like Tracy and the other consultants and our lifelong learning librarian that are out helping librarians be better librarians and work with library boards and others.
Okay, so they're training and
Yeah, I would say that we have some discomfort with the state's classification system for the librarian occupational standard, because when you read that occupational standard, it reads like a traditional librarian. People who are managing collections of books. Like, I think literally one of the librarian 1 requirements is that they shelve books, which we of course don't do. We have talked to the state about the need to revisit that particular occupational standard. And they do have a review process that we would need to go through, working with the State Department of Administration to determine whether or not the current occupational standard actually really does apply to our staff. But at this point, D of A is the one who has said, yes, that's the proper classification.
Okay, thank you for helping me with that. Nice job.
Mhm.
And I just want to say thank you real quick for doing PDF versions. I
Mhm.
no longer print out everything, but some things I still want on
Yeah.
paper.
Me too. Me too. I appreciate it. And I forgot to do a couple of them. Is there anything else? Are we, okay. So now we'll come to the discussion concerning the commission goals and objectives. And I was wondering, I believe I put this across already, but I was wondering if we would like to schedule a work session to discuss our goals and objectives for the coming year and also to discuss the evaluation process.
Mhm. My recommendation would be that we do that in conjunction with your February meeting. Typically, that's a meeting that doesn't have as many business items, so we could have a short condensed business meeting and then devote the rest of the time to a work session specifically around goal setting. And I did want to speak to Tammy's suggestion that we do some more GIS education at that work session. I think that's valuable and would likely be valuable to do more education around some of our other programs too, like our natural heritage program, because I think it's important to have the commission involved in goal setting for those kinds of programs. And especially as we're starting to look to the executive planning process and funding and legislative requests in the upcoming legislative session, the more familiar you are with those programs, the better able we are going to be to set some goals and objectives to help further those initiatives of the state library as well.
And I guess my point is just that anything technologically oriented is a little different for the average citizen to absorb. I mean, the other programs I can read and understand, but again, like what you were saying about the LiDAR, that on the news the other night, it was through our program that they discovered new fusions.
New faults.
I mean, in
Yellowstone.
In Yellowstone.
Yes.
That's really exciting. I mean, they were there, but
yeah,
it was our LiDAR
they
that
discovered them. Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a difference between the technology that is almost need a degree in, it seems like.
I understand. Okay, so.
Yep,
So
I
we will,
support that.
okay. So is that right with everyone? So we'll have a short condensed meeting in February and go on and discuss our goals and objectives, perhaps plan some, so come with ideas, and also the evaluation process, and perhaps something from Evan or Aaron
Mhm.
that we can figure out. the
Now, are you thinking of
geospatial-
hiring someone to lead that goal setting?
Oh, I don't.
I would hope that maybe we could do that
I
ourselves.
think we could do that ourselves. That's my.
Come with ideas.
Yeah.
Yes, come with ideas.
If we look at the annual business calendar, one of the things I would point out is that by your April and June meetings next year, we will be talking about our legislative priorities, both budget and any new legislation. And so one of
will be full.
Yeah, one of my recommendations is in February, as we're starting to talk about goals and objectives, we should be thinking about what our legislative priorities might look like so that we can, be talking with the GIS and library communities and preparing to take action on those priorities, at least by your June commission meeting.
I would point out the February meeting is on Valentine's Day.
It
I know, so I would hope we have chocolate.
Actually,
I have chocolate. I have chocolate for today.
I
do
did
have
replace I had the M&M container and I forgot to buy a new one at Costco to bring.
Oh my.
Bring chocolates.
I have chocolate for today, so after lunch.
is there any flexibility in that date? Could we move it away from Valentine's Day?
No, I'm not.
I
worried
mean,
about
the next action item is approving your
Yes.
meeting dates.
Yeah, so we can discuss that. Okay, so as long we get the February meeting. We know what we're doing. Now we just need to decide about the date. Okay, so we'll,
You're
Yes.
saying that we should review the business calendar in order to come up with goals?
Just,
That would
just
help.
keep the calendar in mind because
Okay.
it lays out the timeline for
we do.
important action that will
Okay.
inform the upcoming legislative session.
Okay.
good idea. Okay, so we'll go on now to the 2024 business meeting dates. As it was noted, the February one is on the 14th of February. Is that a day that we want to move away from or not? It's up to, what are your thoughts? How much, yeah, how much do you, yes.
I would like to move away from it.
Okay. Okay, so let's look at the calendar then.
And let's just say I'm making that suggestion because I have no clue how much upheaval it costs us to move a date.
None, yeah.
Let's move
So,
everything.
I mean, just a suggestion, we could do it to the 7th. We could just move it the Wednesday before, February 7th.
I
We
would
could
be
move
in
it to another
favor of
day
that.
that week. Our work calendar doesn't have anything to,
Hmm. Gosh, I have. If anybody wants to come to a play on the 10th, the 9th or the 10th.
Are you in it?
Yes.
What is it?
I'm singing. I don't know what it is. We haven't been, it hasn't been shown to us, but that week would be difficult for me.
so we could also do the 21st. February 21st.
I have a hard time going.
I will be out of town on the
Okay.
21st.
We could do, if you're open to Fridays, we could do the 16th. Or we could do the 15th. You would still be traveling on Valentine's Day to get here for the 15th meeting, but we could do the 16th if you don't mind Fridays. Jenny, is there an objection to a Friday?
Friday would be better, the 16th would be better for me than the 15th. I have another meeting on the 15th.
So February 16th?
You guys.
Is that all right with everybody?
Okay, I'll change that. I'll create these meeting invites and get them sent out this week and yeah.
Okay, so let's take a look at the rest of them. Let's see. So we've got, okay, so the one in April coincides with the Montana Library Association conference and that is in Butte this year. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I was wondering, the session that we have with the librarians, I think that's incredibly valuable. I wondered if it could be lengthened. It always feels very short, like we don't have enough time to really have much of a discussion.
I can bring that up with the planning committee for the Library Association. They have structured times for
Yes.
those sessions. And so I would need to look at whether or not there's an opportunity for them to lengthen it or not, but I can certainly bring that request to them.
It's just very well attended and it's really tough to do it in 40 minutes or whatever we have.
Okay.
By the time we get in.
That's a good suggestion. Okay, then
So we've changed the one to the 16th.
the February 16th.
How long, how many days is the MLA conference?
The commission meeting would be on the Wednesday, which is the 17th, and it concludes on the Saturday.
So it starts on Wednesday and
Mhm.
concludes.
But we,
Right, the
the
the discussion with the commission is on the Thursday typically.
We have our meeting on
Mhm.
Wednesday and then the meeting with the librarians
Mhm.
is on Thursday.
and I,
So that makes it a 2-day affair for us?
Mhm.
Okay.
but I think last year we just had Tom and I
That's
and,
because Peggy and I were sick.
and you two. were
Yes.
sick.
Yes, we were sick. Yeah. Hopefully that won't
You
happen.
weren't appointed yet.
Sarah Wager did comment, I believe she's from MLA.
You weren't there.
Jenny, I'm happy to mention that at the planning meeting, it may mean moving the session to a different day, but
Oh.
they'll see what they can do for us.
So how long are the 2 sessions that the state library is involved in?
We do a full meeting.
It's our regular business meeting
Mhm.
in April, so that's,
However long. that is.
however long the business meeting is on the Wednesday. Typically, the conversations with the commission, it's a part of the conference agenda. It's been an hour session. I can't recall, they may have 90-minute sessions also as an option. So I think that's what Sarah might be looking into.
Okay,
Is there a-
and if it's moved, I mean, that would, yeah, I don't know if we would be, I mean, how many of us would want to stay until Friday or
No.
Saturday?
I've never attended that because I wasn't here yet either, this year.
Right.
Is there
So-
any chance to have our business meeting and I'm assuming like a question and answer session with the MLA members on the same day?
That would be difficult. It would, one, because our staff are involved in this meeting and also attending and presenting in other sessions. So to have those on the same day would be difficult for our staff. The conversations with the commission is typically one of those really well-attended conference sessions. So I just want to clarify what I'm hearing. The preference is longer if it can still be on Thursday, but if it would have to be moved to a different day, the preference is to keep it to the hour and have it on Thursday.
I agree with
Is
that.
that
That's what, yes.
Sarah said heard. She got noted.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Okay, so then let's look at the rest of them. Wednesday, June 12th, Wednesday, August 14th, Wednesday, October 9th, and Wednesday, December 11th. Are there any changes for anyone or that need to be changed?
At my age, it's just doctor appointments and I never know.
Yeah. Okay. And as far as I can see, looks good. October 9th, okay. All right, okay, well, if there aren't any other conflicts, then we'll, yes.
In October, but I'm on a 3-week trip to Europe.
Oh,
That'll be hard to zoom.
oh, wonderful, you lucky duck. That's wonderful. Yeah. Oh, well, that'd be awesome.
If you need a tour guide,
Yeah, me too.
I can bring libraries.
That'd be fun. All right, so the Spring Federation dates, we do,
Should have a motion to approve the.
oh, sorry,
dates.
okay, sorry about that, missed that, okay. So, is there a motion to approve our calendar, our 2024 business meeting dates? Is there a second?
With the understanding it can be changed as needed. If
With the understanding, okay. Is there a second?
Second that?
Okay, thank you. Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we approve the 2024 business meeting dates with that notation that they could possibly be changed if necessary. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, all opposed? No? Okay.
I
Aye.
meant I.
Yeah, you meant aye. Okay. All right, we'll go on. It has been moved and accepted. The 2024 business meeting dates have been moved and accepted. Okay, let's go on to the Spring Federation dates. We do need to volunteer for these meetings. I know that they appreciate us showing up, either Zoom or in person. Does everybody have the dates in front of them? The Broad Valleys Federation meeting is at the Forge Hotel in Anaconda. I would like to go to that one if I possibly could. That would be fun. If I can, I will try to do that one. And then the Golden Plains Federation is at the Roosevelt County Library in Wolf Point, April 25th. The Pathfinder Federation meeting is at Shoto County Library in Fort Benton on May 2nd. The Sagebrush Federation meeting is in Miles City Public Library in Miles City on April 5th. The South Central Federation meeting is at the Billings Public Library on April 6th. So if somebody wanted to do a trip over to Eastern Montana on the 5th and 6th. Then there's the Tamarack Federation meeting at North Lake County Library in Polson on April 26th and 27th. Okay, so is anybody willing to raise their hand for any of those?
I still wanted to go to Fort Benton.
Okay, Peggy, okay. I may be able to get that one up too. Well,
So is
Probably.
it generally expected that you attend in person for these meetings? Is that preferred?
Summers,
well, some of them, they're so far away. I mean, it's really
Yeah.
difficult.
but some of them are
Most of
Zoom.
them are Zoom. All of them so far have been Zoom that I've seen. So Zoom is
Is an option.
acceptable, yeah. Mhm.
I like getting a Zoom invitation to all of them. And then if I'm
Yes.
free that day, I'd like to attend. So I have
Yeah.
done several Zoom, but
Yeah, I have too. And it's good to go to attend.
I could
That's
probably
mine.
also do the Polson one in person too.
I will try Miles City and Billings, but I have to wait and see the dates. So I'm not gonna commit.
Okay,
I will be at the Tamarack Federation meeting because that's my federation.
great.
And I think, the Zoom invite is great. And if it works, I'll do as many as I can on Zoom.
Me too.
Yeah, me too. So let's all, whatever you can attend on Zoom is,
Well, I will try to do, at least the Billings one, but, I
in
have-
person, Tammy, or Zoom?
I will try to do it in person, but I have to look at the calendar.
Okay,
I actually still have a Rolodex and a calendar on my desk. I'm sorry.
that's all right.
I know. Poor Brian. He's like, what are those things?
Got one here, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with it.
I will take yours if you want to make wonderful
Oh.
cards from them.
Ah, I hang mine on my wall. I love it.
It's
It is
beautiful.
my favorite calendar. So and that is, I'd like to thank, did Bryce get these for us? No? Or- Thank you, Bryce, Bryce Maxwell for the Montana Natural Heritage Program calendars. They're lovely. Absolutely. I can't wait to hang mine on my wall. We use it quite often. I don't, my husband does. He writes appointments and different things on it, so it's great. All right, next we have. Is there any is there any public comment on any matter not contained in this agenda that is within the jurisdiction of the State Library Commission? This is public comment. Any hands? No hands. All right. Okay, so we'll go on now. Is there any other business or announcements from the commission? Hey, Brian?
Yeah, so I'd just like to say, make a few comments about the message we received that was sent to the chair about the resolution that MLA adopted. And so that was. Is it not on?
Oh, it is
There-
on.
It is
There
on.
you
I'm
go. Close
just
there.
too far away.
There you go.
Sorry. So the executive director of the Montana Library Association sent a message to the chair of the commission, who forwarded it on to us. And Commissioner Cuthbertson actually did send a message in response to that to the commission, in which she recommended a course of action. And that was in violation of open meeting laws. I'm sure that was unintentional, completely unintentional, but nevertheless, I would like to read her message so that it's on the record, and then I would like to make some comments. So just for context, for members of the public who may be aware of this resolution, this is what the executive director sent to the chair. The board of directors of the Montana Library Association passed a resolution on Monday, November 13th, titled Support for Library Professionalism. The resolution can be found on MLA's website. The final paragraph of the resolution states, be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Montana State Library Commission and other relevant stakeholders to foster understanding and collaboration in our shared commitment to providing outstanding library service for all Montanans. I am providing you with a copy now. Please distribute the resolution to current Montana State Library Commissioners for review. The MLA Board of Directors believes that there is common ground between MLA and the Commission, and we are open to exploring how we can work together for the betterment of Montana libraries. So Carmen sent the following message to the Commission. This is a request for the Commission as a whole, which we can't respond to individually. It would therefore have to be brought up at a meeting. I have no desire for conflict between us and the MLA. They are a separate entity pursuing their goals, which they have every right to do. We should leave them alone, and they should leave us alone. If they want to engage with the commission, they have the right to put out whatever statements they wish, but we are under no obligation to get involved. I suggest no response. So I wish to remind the commission that it has a statutory obligation to provide support and advice for tax-supported public libraries. Ignoring MLA's resolution ignores the commission's responsibility and its opportunity to positively engage with those it is obligated to support under law. Moreover, the very first theme in the Montana State Library Strategic Framework is to foster partnerships. MLA is the organization that represents library workers in the state of Montana, and it is one of the Montana State Library's most critical partners. MLA is explicitly inviting the commission to explore how we can work together for the betterment of Montana libraries. This is an invitation which I do not think should be ignored. So, Madam Chair and State Librarian Jenny Stapp, I wish to request that an agenda item to discuss an appropriate response from the Commission to MLA regarding its resolution and its offer to partner with us be added to the next Commission meeting's agenda. Thank you.
Carmen?
One of my questions is, should the MLA contact us in a public meeting? Because this was an email sent to each individual commissioner. Was that the appropriate way? I didn't want to get into an email exchange precisely because we're not supposed to do that. So shouldn't they contact us officially during an open meeting?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That was my main concern.
If that is something that the commission feels should happen, I suppose we could suggest, since the executive director contacted the chair, that the chair could ask them to perhaps make a presentation or come and speak to us at an upcoming meeting. Do you think that would be better, Carmen?
I think that's how I thought it should be, instead of an email, especially to us individually with everybody copied on it. That's precisely how we're not supposed to communicate.
Received it and I forwarded it on because it asked me to. It was an information item that it wasn't a discussion. It was an information item that I passed on, that I received and passed on.
I actually, Madam Chair, if I may, I had a request also with the Trust of Montana Library that we just renew what our standing is with these groups. The Montana Library Association, the Trust of, what's exact?
The Trust.
The Trust for
Montana Libraries.
I keep trying to figure out what that could be for a local thing. Trust for Library, yeah. I would request an agenda item where we get a very clear understanding of what our relationship is with those groups. And yeah, because I had the same concern that Carmen did. I think I took it the way she did. I didn't think she did anything wrong by saying this. Individually, we can't do any of this. So I felt like it was a really good statement. You should bring that to us as a group.
Perhaps one suggestion would be when we meet on the same day that MLA is beginning, they would be in town. So somebody could come and talk to us at
So in April, then, I believe it is April, perhaps they could come and give us a presentation.
Just have a conversation.
Or a conversation with us. We could invite them to do that. So it's okay.
Now, when we receive our legislative updates, we receive what the bills we're proposing with and the bills they're with, right? Their stance and our stance.
In my legislative updates, I have provided that in the past.
I would add that if they do come and visit with us in April, that would meet my objective. I think having a conversation with them would meet my objective.
Okay. All right. So the gentleman's name was that sent that Kirk was Kirk.
Reisman.
Okay. I will come up with an invite to come visit with us in April.
That must have been before we switched to Gmail, because I'm not seeing that. So I don't no longer have access to that exchange.
Okay, let me see.
Okay.
Gosh, I thought it was more recent than that.
It was on November 16th.
It could have been before I knew you had a Gmail address. So Carmen, so it might have been in that email group. It was still your mt.gov one. I think you were the last one that I like moved over to the new email address. So
Okay.
possibly, I'm not sure.
Brian, if you have it right now, can you forward to me the full exchange again?
Sure, yeah.
Just be good to know.
Oh, I have it also. Yeah, it was on November 15th. Was when I received it, and I probably sent it on, yes, on November 15th.
So for future topic, we are going to at some point talk about the certification program, the criteria for the certification program and the governance of that. Is that at some meeting, are we? Or do other commissioners find that helpful?
The certification program.
Yes.
Okay.
So to be clear, you want an overview of the continuing education program, the criteria for awarding continuing education and the commission's role in the process?
Yes, because that is one of our fundamental roles that's appointed in our actual statute. Is that overseeing of that certification, right? So that to me is quite important.
Do you want to have that in February when we're trying to have a condensed meeting, or would April be sufficient for that discussion?
When do we start getting into the budget in the legislature? The budget will be taking up starting in pretty much April.
In April. Let's see.
Well, what's the calendar on reestablishing the classes for the certification?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean. We don't
now.
we don't reestablish, we don't,
accept
yeah,
everything.
exactly.
So.
Yeah.
I do find it a really important aspect of what we do. It should be. Because.
And the continuing education task force and their recommendations was just reviewed by this commission in June and adopted in June. So there is no scheduled review of that program at this time.
Yeah, so I guess April would be fine then. Is that what we're saying? Okay.
Is there any other business or announcements? There was something about communication between the staff and the commission.
Oh, that's correct. We had wanted to clarify whether when commissioners were making information requests of staff, whether or not you want the entire commission included on those communications, or if you would prefer to not have the full commission included. And I think that's a decision for the commission to make.
I tend to say yes, but I would like to avoid what I did there. So maybe the subject line can say, FYI, do not respond. And then here's the question and the answer.
And we had talked about having a discllaimer in
Right,
the
in the
emails that this
email.
is provided for information only. If any follow-up is required, that needs to happen in an open meeting.
Yeah, that's
Does that sound good?
Okay.
reminder.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. And again, a request to the commission that if you're making those information requests, if you could let us know if it's an urgent matter or something that could be shared with you at a subsequent meeting, that would help as well.
All right, okay. Is there anything else? Okay, if not, I would like to thank everybody again for all your hard work and for all the information provided and all the preparation and all the commissioners' dedication that went into this meeting. With that said, do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, any second? May I have a second?
I second that.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded that the meeting is adjourned, and I'm gonna use, there we go.
Now,